What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the MN Viking Zombie movie review channel, among other things. I am one of the guests on this show, Kyle Smith. I am joined by the one and only Adam Carlson. How are you, sir?
Yeah, see, he's got the voice for radio, so that he's better off doing the intros and all that kind of stuff. I'm just here to do the talking.
Fake it till you make it, man. I can imitate some people. This is a fun
Not
day.
bad, not bad.
This movie that we're going to review today is called Antlers. It was released last year in 2021, which is still odd to say. It doesn't feel like February of 2022, but here we are on Wednesday, 2/2/22. And
Yeah.
yeah, this film had some setbacks early on. I remember seeing a preview for this a couple of years ago, and due to COVID and the pandemic, it was shut down. When movie theaters started opening up nationwide, there were certain cities and states, they kind of did their own thing, but was very happy to go see this. Big fan of Carrie Russell, who was in this movie. She's one of the main characters. I'm also a big fan of Jesse Plemons, her estranged brother in this one. They have a rocky relationship, but he is also a good actor. Is up and coming.
Didn't Guillermo del Toro have his hand in this too?
Yep, that is right. Looking up here, director Scott Cooper. Where is Guillermo at? Because he is somewhere here. I heard his name mentioned on a couple of videos. I had to refresh my mind on this because it had been a while since I'd seen it.
Yeah, his movies are always usually something that can catch your eye a little bit and make things happen. But yeah, I went into this movie a lot like the other ones. No idea what it was. At first, I was kind of thinking, is this going to be something like Tusk? Because I didn't care for Tusk. But this was not anything like Tusk. So thank goodness.
I'm reading here from Wikipedia. In July 2018, it was announced that Guillermo del Toro was going to produce Antlers. The director is Scott Cooper, but he did have a say in production in this, so that's cool.
Oh, yeah. So, um, if you want to talk a little bit about what this is about, go ahead.
Fresh show. We are your biggest fan. Thank you for joining us. Seriously, though, if you
Absolutely.
haven't seen this movie, check it out. We're going to spoil it for you. Sorry about that, but it's a fun one. It's an interesting one. So, basically, the plot of this movie, we see a young actor here that I was very impressed with. His name is Lucas Weaver in the movie, Jeremy T. Thomas. I'm not sure his actual age. He's not even a teenager yet. I can tell you that much. Maybe he's 11, somewhere around there. But Lucas Weaver is the character here, a young boy, and his teacher, Carrie Russell, notices uh, pretty early on in the film that something's off. We can't tell. He's very sad. He's very quiet. Yet when you look at him, you can see that there's something bothering him. And she decides to take it into her own hands to investigate and see later on in the film what's going on with this kid, if she can help. And it's all out of a good place. Some of these movies, people are nosy or they have a motive. She's genuinely concerned. And one of the key parts, I'm going to jump around it for a little bit, but one of the key parts of the movie that really touched me in a positive way was the scene at the diner. She's actually trying to get to his level, making eye contact, trying to find stories to connect him. But we see that Lucas throughout the movie is very guarded, and he has to play a very adult role in his own life because he's kind of left to fend for himself, essentially.
Yeah, their home's in shambles. I don't believe there was electricity really.
No, just enough to get by, just to keep you out of the elements. No, everything's outdated. There's no electricity. Don't know how he takes baths and grooms himself and keeps his hygiene up. You have to imagine they don't have any heat in that house, and I'm sure it stinks to high heaven with the
He
stuff
was
that he has to
constantly getting
bring.
bullied by the kids at school.
So sad. And I think that we mentioned it on the last movie we did. My heart can't beat unless you tell it to. I think I nailed that one first try. I'm going to keep going.
There you go.
Um, yeah, we noticed in that movie, and I mentioned specifically the lighting played a huge role in the mood and set the tone, the undertone of what everything was. It was very dim and somber. And that's the same way in this movie. You can see that in that movie, there was a warmer, more brown, yellowish tone, but it still
Yes.
felt dim. It still felt kind of old and nostalgic. In this movie, there's a darker tone, like the sun is setting. You can see a bluer, grayish tone throughout, and it's meant to feel dark. And I think they did an excellent job there in this movie. I think that's why, and how we got into this one. I think that's what led me to mention Antlers was the lighting of all things.
Yeah, this I thought this one was a little dark for the lighting,
Mm-hmm.
but I also felt like it was kind of necessary for some reasons that we'll talk about a little later. But yeah, this movie, I didn't realize that it was set in Native culture. Of course, I don't know how many of you know this about me, but my dad was a tribal member. I grew up on an Indian reservation, so I know quite a bit about a lot of the legends and things like that that surround the Native American culture. So for me, I wish that would have been tackled a little bit more in this film, because I know there was the one scene at the table, but that small scene I don't feel was enough to kind of set up what happened and why it was important to natives and what they used to do in situations where they felt this was happening. And I felt they missed out on a real opportunity there.
I agree. I think, not to discredit or take away from any of the Native American culture in the film, but even if you just did one more scene where, and I'm not a director, I'm not a writer, so please guys be gentle with this, but they try to explain it to you in one scene where he's out at his home and there's a beautiful lake in the background. I think that was pretty cool that they nailed that home. Like, hey, this is where I live. This is my land. This is where my people stayed. I feel like if there was an approach to break these in half into two different scenes, the first one could be kind of a reservation from Graham Greene, who plays Warren Stokes in the movie. He's a great actor. If you see his face, you've seen him in a million things. He's a great actor. I feel like they could have went with a little bit of reservation there and kind of hesitance, and then
you're using that word a lot.
Later. What's that?
You're using that word reservation a lot when talking about natives.
Oh, I know. Didn't even put those together. Some hesitance there. There could have been some apprehension as to, do you want to go and literally stir the beast, which he tells you about later. And then we could explain, he's like, come with me, I'll tell you about it, or come back later, find him later in the film. And he's like, I told you, this is why I'm so reserved at doing this. And I'm apprehensive about going because I don't, you guys don't understand the legend that I believe in. I'm with you there. I think that there could have been more of a story. You don't have to spend, half an hour on it, but give him more than one scene to quickly explain it,
Which is strange because this was only a 90-some minute movie.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like what was in the movie didn't do They spent a lot of time on things that weren't necessary to spend a lot of time on, while other things that could have been expanded on and been more interesting were left out. So for me, that's kind of a really disappointing part of this film.
This is wonderful. We got some more Twitch bots in here, some YouTube bots now. There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, girls will do what you say. Go and subscribe to this channel, MN Viking Zombie. All right, do that. We're always gonna feed into that. Yeah, I agree. I think the approach that this film took for its presentation was kind of a classic one. It's kind of a slow burn, and it ends with a lot of horror movies that we see. They'll have ups and downs, and it's much like a roller coaster or peaks and valleys. This one's a slow climb up, and it gradually gets worse, which I can appreciate. Some films do a great job of that, and the ending for this, obviously, you see the creature that we're going to talk about in a minute. But yeah, I feel like some of those were swings and misses, as you alluded to, on some of the subject matter that they could have spent more time on, and some of the things that they spent time on we could have been a little less. But the biggest thing that hits home for me is little Lucas in this movie. Good Lord, the situation that he was put into was so bad. He's such a fighter, and there's a lot of conviction there trying to justify what he's doing because he knows what he's doing isn't normal. He's going out and collecting dead animals for his father, who we find out in the film pretty early on is sick. We don't know why. He's collecting dead animals to feed him because this is what he wants now. This is what he's told him to do. So he's just following orders, which I felt very connected with. Not on any personal reasoning, just man, that poor kid having to go through what he's going through has to be really tough.
Yeah, they spent a ton of time developing that young boy's character, about how he was malnourished, about what he had to do to protect himself, his brother, and what was happening around him with the locked doors. And I get that a lot of it was to build tension, but I felt like it failed in a lot of places because horror movies are supposed to do one thing. They're supposed to tell you a really intense story, but leave out one aspect of it. Doesn't matter what that aspect is, just leave one thing out. Then at the end, or close to the end, you take that one thing and boom, that's supposed to be what the major thing is for a horror movie, in my opinion. And this movie, I wasn't left with a lot of feelings like that.
Right.
It was all fairly straightforward and followed the major plan of a monster movie. Not like the middle of a franchise, but the creation of a monster movie. And from there, I just felt like the monster itself, at times, it showed itself to be like a really intelligent creature, like almost human intelligence. And then when it starts to get in fights, it just automatically gets really stupid. And then when it's fighting the teacher, it's diving on people, and then when it's fighting the lady with the pole, it's all timid. And I don't know. To me, the way the monster moved was so inconsistent, and it almost looked. It better have been practical effects because it was pretty bad.
I agree. And a fresh show. Thank you for your input for this show. Keep it coming. Thought the main kid's art scribble was freaky. I love that. That's one of my favorite things.
Right.
It's one of those things
use
really
that as a background here.
Yeah, we tried to make that a background, and it doesn't work with our layout here. It's annoying. I'll tell you, that was one of the main things. That was one of those subconscious things where you look at it, and for the general audience, if you listen to this or watch this, when you see a child doing something so dark, it takes me to, like, Adam and I are different to where I like a lot of the supernatural and the demonic stuff for horror movies, right? It automatically took me to, like, oh my God, there's like a possessed child. Why would he do this? But he's just conveying what he sees at home, and he's just trying to find an outlet to make himself feel normal, is the way I interpreted it. The other thing we're talking about here, to your point, Adam, I like the idea of this villain in the movie, or the creature. But yes, the way it was moving around was kind of silly. I think the word is, I'll go for it. And Fresh Show says, I saw Antlers. I thought the wood shack scene was silly and idiotic. I think that was probably one of the points where I kind of just laughed. I was like, okay, for us to keep this climb, because this is towards the end of the movie, that was one of the scenes where I was like,
as soon as the main character gets involved, they're not going to die,
Well, that too, and I see Jesse Plemons, Paul Meadows, as we know him in the film. He's the police officer, the brother of Kerry Russell in this film. I see him going to investigate, and I looked when I watched one of these trailers for this movie, and was like, 10-1, I bet you this cop doesn't live through the movie. And I was just laughing. I was like, this person's already putting bets out based on cliches from before, and they were right.
Did they ever explain why the stuff that was in the shaft at the beginning was happening?
No, and that's one of the things that I really wanted clarity on. My interpretation of that was that's kind of what started the whole thing, since it was closed off, and that's where his dad worked. I'm not sure what happened, though. I want to know what specifically in there caused him to turn into this, because all I remember was the two guys with the gas mask at the beginning, and then they hear or see something, and then
at the beginning, the little boy is in the truck, and the dad goes in to investigate, and then that's what happens. So my major thing that I kind of was confused about this movie is that I didn't know what happened to lead up to it, and then a lot of the time was spent on explaining the situation with the boy instead of explaining what was going on with the dad. And that's fine. That's fine. As long as the big reveal was big, and it did a lot of the same horror things that a lot of movies do. It had the human kind of cracking their bones and, all that kind of stuff when they're transforming into something. It had a weird glowing red heart thing that I had trouble getting into this movie.
The only thing I can relate the red heart from is if you're, I think about the miners back in the 1800s, the late 1800s. They always had those problems internally, and I don't know if that was a correlation. That's literally the only thing that I could think of to come to mind. but it feels like they were going in more of a direction of like supernatural or evil kind of way. Nothing practical is this is a practical answer I have. I don't feel like that's where they were leading towards that. I want to know if there was a significant event. I want to know if this was a site on top of a burial ground and now it's cursed.
Right,
I
because
don't
it
have
felt
that
like they
answer.
were setting up a sequel with the end.
Absolutely, it does.
Now, it's hard to get invested in a franchise when you have no idea what's going on.
If you can find a clever way to reveal it in another film, I'd be interested to watch it. But right now, I don't have that. I don't have that sort of investment because I didn't get the front end of the movie at the back end, like you were saying, for the delivery. So I'm not sure. I would watch the second one of this because I have questions, but I would keep my expectations very low for them to answer those. And I would see more of it being like sort of an action film if I'm just guessing out in the dark based on what the first one is. A lot of good versus evil, they're going to hunt this thing down or they're going to fight or there's going to be another one to join forces or something like that. And then not a lot of the horror element, more of the thriller type. And I was kind of looking for more of the horror stuff. But to transition,
Yeah,
there were
for
some
all the
cool
tension
kills.
building, the doors rattling, the locks, and everything, for all that tension that was built, all it really resulted in was a couple of, I'll say, moderate jump scares.
Yep.
There wasn't really that building of tension like in some of the classic horror movies, Psycho and movies like that. The whole movie is a build to one or two scenes.
Yep.
And those scenes are what are supposed to leave that impression on you when you walk out of the theater and you're like, wow. You know, that build, I didn't feel did an adequate job of building up what this finale was. Maybe it's because the finale with the big spear was lackluster, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a letdown.
I will admit that the scene following that, with her and the dagger and the boy, that was much better.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for what the focus of this movie was supposed to be, and what I think they were trying to do with it, I commend it because they found a good cast. Felt the cast did a very good job. As far as creating an atmosphere, I thought they did okay. It was a little darker than I would have liked. I would have liked a little bit more contrast with colors instead of going to almost complete black in a lot of scenes.
Yep.
But I mean, I wanted to like this movie, but in the end, I just don't know if I did.
Oh, excuse me. I think what's funny too is you mentioned the color and the contrast. For those of you that are watching still, probably fresh show, because you saw this film. If you look at Adam's background right here, because he's using the green screen effect we have here on StreamYard, that's pretty much the lighting for the entire movie, give or take about 15 minutes out of the 90 minutes.
Yeah.
At the school, at the diner, cool, but you're in a mine
outside
shaft.
in a cave.
You're in a cave. You're in a mine shaft. You're in a house with no electricity. And while I think the preface of that and the intent is, okay, we want to make it somber and dark, I get that. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more because those things that you can see can also have the same effects as the things you can't see. If I see how worn down the house is, it might make me feel even more gross for Lucas in a movie or something like that. The feeling you might get.
I don't know if you've watched that Netflix series on how horror movies are made, but they said one of the reasons, other than atmosphere, as to why they do such a dark background and night scenes and enclosed things isn't just for atmosphere. It's to help hide the practical effects and what they're doing. And for this movie, I think that they may not have had a big enough budget to be able to do some of the things they wanted to do with the monster and the world around them. And because the CGI effects with the glowing red and the way the monster was able to move at sometimes and not at others, it did not work for me.
I get that. That's very well articulated. The positive I'll say on it, because we both are in agreement. I have a feeling we're going to have about the same score for this movie at the end. The positive I'll say with all the negative stuff is leading to the transformation of the dad when he's super sick and he's still in human form up until he goes full on beast, as we'll call it here. There was some cool, especially the lead up. My favorite part of the film is probably the goriest and most savage part of it. But there's a younger brother in the film who Lucas is connected to, and he wants to keep him innocent. You can tell he wants so badly to keep him innocent, but basically the dad is hoarding him in the house. He's like, "You're not leaving. You know, I'm sick. You're sick. We got to figure this out." That's a great mug. And yeah, they do a wellness check, and I think the principal or close to the principal, somebody like that, goes in to check, and they see a locked door, which I thought the spirit of that notion of him having a door that he set up is kind of cool. The dad knowing like, hey, no matter what, you lock this door. It doesn't matter what sounds you hear. Doesn't matter what I tell you. Stay away. You know, keep out. I
He
like
can
the
charge to the
idea of that.
shed, the wall of a shed, but a couple locks on a door, and he can't. Nope,
Right.
thwarted.
I thought the layout architecturally was cool too. Having to go up, you know, climb those stairs and go up and see the reveal. That was a cool tense filled moment that I was waiting for.
But you're talking about the kill of the blonde lady, right?
Yes. After
Yeah,
she's
that
done
was a
reveal
vicious
wellness
kill
check.
right there.
It was a vicious kill, and then they see at the end whomever's face is on the beast. And I had a when I was trying to pick a background for this, I found a photo still of that, and I forgot about it. I was like,
So,
oh, that's chilling.
do you think one of the boys put that on?
What my interpretation of it was to start, it was either his own face or, unfortunately, it might have been his little brother's, which is so sick if that is. But I mean, he's eating people and killing them. So
Right, but who do you think put it on? Like it was stretched
I
across
don't
a couple of
know.
the antlers and went
This
across
is
his face.
this is one of the things that you were talking about where he has human intelligence, you know. And I made the joke. I was like, oh, look, it's a Leatherface reference. Like, did he put it on? We've certainly seen points in
Right,
the movie where he's capable to do that.
because he's
Good question.
knowingly keeping another human in there with him and not eating him.
Right, and that's that's a good point too. That's one of the reasons why I felt so connected. There's a human element to that, even knowing that he's going backwards and it's pretty irreversible. He still wants to keep some sort of resemblance for that child protected, I guess. Obviously, the way they go about it's probably not the best way, but that's how you kind of keep it connected. That's what kept me most interested, is as I was rooting for the young child and rooting for him to get better, even though we all knew he wasn't going to.
Yeah, I wish they would have focused a little bit more on other talents the boy had and given him a little bit more of a personality rather than just being a timid, malnourished kid. And I get that there might not be more to him because he doesn't have those experiences outside of what's going on in his house. But again, that was something that made it hard for me to connect with.
That, or you know, maybe there was something that he remembers before his dad got sick, because he is old enough to have memories that he could hold on to and have later, you know, that be kind of like the movie we just watched before this, you know, like the paper airplane that ends up bringing someone else in.
Yeah.
Maybe it be a baseball card or like a radio, like a little AM radio he gets to listen to, like something like that. But you're right, there was no semblance of a personality, which I'll give the kid credit for this. Jeremy Thomas. I mean, what a great actor for such a young
Fantastic
age.
actor.
He's going to be something special. I'm glad we get to see this early. But that character, yeah, I wanted a little more. I think overall, I mean, we pretty much covered every basis of the film here. Overall,
Well, we didn't cover at the very end that the brother who was gored and somehow survived, that he seems to be afflicted with this thing now.
And I got to figure out where this is located geographically, because wherever he was standing, God, that was beautiful. It was wonderful to look at. Looked to be of some kind of lake surrounded by the mountains, but
it sounded at the beginning like they were speaking some form of Chippewa.
Oh, very nice.
Because I made out a few words here and there, but not too many.
I was wondering if it was based in like Washington. I don't know why Washington's the first thing to come to mind. I guess just because of the way it looks geographically, but I'm not sure how big the Native American following is up there. If there are spots there, I have no clue. So I'm not even going to make that assumption. Yeah, that goes to your point though, Adam. That does lead in for a second. We don't know how this affects people. We have very little reference because we've only seen one person who had lived and transformed through it. So
Portland, Oregon, he says.
There you go. All right, I was in the neighborhood, Pacific Northwest. Will there be a second? I don't know, but they have certainly teased the door for that to be open.
Yeah, there's an opportunity. Yeah. So I again, I don't know if it was because I wasn't really in a mood to watch watch a movie last night, but I kind of forced myself to, or if I really just couldn't connect with almost anything, or if it was the special effects or the lighting that kind of left me out. But yeah, if 60 is a passing grade, this is probably about a 64 to me, or a 6.4.
Yeah, that's a good one. Fresh show. Did the scratches on the kid cross the line? Remind me again. I haven't seen this movie in a couple months. I watched the trailer again to get a little flashback.
Yeah, they did show quite a few of the scratches on the back, and that was unsettling. I mean, I know this is not really related to the movie a lot, but child violence. When you see a picture, like both Kyle Smith and I are football fans, and when I saw some of the photos of what happened with Adrian Peterson's kid, with the child abuse there, with the marks from the switch, that's one of the first places my mind went when I saw the big scratches across the kid's back, and that alone was enough to kind of trigger me a little bit.
Yeah, it's like unsettling is the good word for that. Uneasy, queasy. It makes me want to wiggle around in my chair. It depends on the message. If you can do it artfully, I guess, but it's not something that I had to see to make this film understandable. Yeah, I could have done without that. But yeah, we were giving our stuff out here. I don't hate this film. I think sometimes the story's great, but the acting isn't good. I think this is the other way around. I think the acting in this movie was awesome. I think the cast was awesome. I just think the story at times, if they could have, stopped in mid-production to say, okay, this is where we're going with it, but what's the left fork of this road or the right fork? Fresh Show mentioned earlier on, the wood shack scene was kind of weird. I love the staircase reveal to when he's turning into the monster. I thought that was great, but to Adam's point, a little more character development to make me invested. Find more human elements with the monster and give me a reason why this happened. Like I said earlier, is there a curse on this town? Where did that come from? Was this a nuclear event or something weird like that? Like, I don't know why this happened.
And they touched on that a little bit, where I've been avoiding the word the whole way because Native Americans aren't supposed to say it. But the name for that monster is something very familiar to a lot of Native people.
Okay. And
there are things that say that even mentioning its name can bring it into existence. So I don't know if that was that was mentioned in the movie, but I don't know if that was the cause.
Okay. That's one of the things too I see with any film, and a lot of it obviously with horror, when people don't take Native American culture or their beliefs seriously, dating back, it's a very prideful thing. It's a very, very much part of the culture. Something bad happens, and when you see that in this movie, you're wondering, okay, cool. You probably should have listened to this guy, but such as history, you probably should have done that for decades now.
Horror movies always have that one person that's wise up to everything. Seems that way.
It always makes me think of Friday the 13th, the old man with the suspenders telling you kids shouldn't be out here. It's like, you probably shouldn't.
That character is so great.
It's perfect for that setting and that time frame of those films. Yeah, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. I'm loving the fact that my childhood came out to watch Carrie Russell. I was in love with her when I was younger. I think she did a great job. And I really applaud her for taking a role that this is just nothing like we've seen any of her other stuff. And I think actors and actresses really need to do that once or twice in their career, just even for shock value alone, but just to show their range. Same thing for Jesse Plemons. He's an up-and-comer who I really enjoy his supporting role so far, but I could see him being a lead actor somewhere else. And then Jeremy Thomas as Lucas, the young boy, he's going to be something special. So
yeah, the casting and the acting was very good. The only issue that I really had is that the screenplay and script could use a little tightening up.
Sure. But yeah, still not the worst one we've done on this channel.
No.
So I'm happy with that.
And honestly, I would have been happy with another 20 minutes tacked on this movie if it helped to explain and bring a little bit more into it. I read some reviews over on Rotten Tomatoes and Google about how they felt it was so drawn out at the beginning. And yeah, that is true. But a lot of movies try to establish those characters and establish a situation first. But you've got to give people little tastes along the way. You got to drop a piece of candy to keep them on the right trail, you know? And that's not really what happened in this movie.
Yep, you're right. That's a perfect explanation of it. Little things that could have been tweaked, but I would suggest, just me personally, like give it a try. Maybe you're into it, maybe you're not. We'll see if a sequel comes out. If they could shelve this for this long and still have this much interest, I'm sure they could have more interest in the second one. And if they listen to the fans like us, maybe they'll tweak it going forward and give us answers and keep us intrigued. But a little underwhelming, but not the worst one we've reviewed, not the worst horror movie I've seen. So
I came in here expecting to disagree with you horribly on this one because it sounded like you were kind of talking it up. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go in here and kind of poop all over this movie that I know he likes, but I've got to give my honest review. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised that we are kind of on the same page again.
I liked it. Like I said, I won't repeat myself, but I loved the casting, and I feel like I'm such a sucker as a fan. If I see a person or an actor I like we did the one with Jake Gyllenhaal, I'm gonna watch whatever he puts out, even if it's a stink fest. So I'm glad to see Carrie Russell. I haven't seen her in years, so I'm glad to see she's still acting and still doing good. But underwhelming is the theme for this movie. A little underwhelming.
So we're already planning on talking about the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film when that comes out. And when is that released? Do you know?
February the 18th.
I will probably squeeze in one more, or at least one more before then. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to hit us up. You can hit me up on Twitch, YouTube, or really Instagram, Facebook. Twitter's always good. I'm all over the place. Let's see. We got some new here. New comment. Biggest problem with the creature feature is that it refuses to feature the creature. Yeah.
That's a good one. And we had you up, Fresh Show. We had you up because I wanted to give you a shout out for sticking around. Not that we say that sticking around like we're holding you at knife point to watch this. You wanted to come here, and we appreciate that. But this was good feedback. This was good interaction on this particular movie, and I'm glad that you had already seen it and wanted to chime in. We appreciate that a lot. Yeah, that's funny how you use that, and it's pretty dead on.
That's we've talked about that before. How when you do the big creature reveal, it's gotta be something special. It's gotta be something big. And honestly, the transformational scenes where he's transforming into the monster and like slowly losing his human nature, I found those to be so much more compelling than when they finally had like the full monster transformation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seemed like they were on a slow trajectory to show little things here and there, which were great. And they were scary, you know? You see him come out, grab something and go back. You're like, oh, that's freaky. That's weird. But I felt like they skipped 3 or 4 steps to show the final reveal. And that didn't go along with everything that we saw in the movie as well. So
I wouldn't recommend this movie. If someone told me they were going to watch it, I might say that it wasn't really for me, but they might like it. I wouldn't steer them away from it. I think there were some good parts about it. But yeah, as a whole, not one of my favorites.
I will agree. I'm glad that we got a review out of it, but I'm ready. I'm on to the next one. As Bill Belichick says in the NFL, we're on to Cincinnati. So we're going to the next one. And if I have anything to do with it, 2 weeks from now, we still have 2 weeks from today, I believe. Today's Wednesday. Yeah. 16 days until the Texas Chainsaw comes out, so we can fit in at least 2 if we want. I know yours and I schedule probably.
Oh yeah, we can squeeze some stuff in
midweek, so we'll figure out the next one.
Hit us up with some suggestions. He is NC Dog Dude on whatever socials you're on. Mm-hmm. Hit him up, hang out. I am MN Viking Zombie over on all my socials. You can check me out. You can see pictures of cats. You can see me doing silly stuff on TikTok. You can go on Twitter and just talk to me about anything. Hey, it's all good times. And for those of you who really love horror and like The Walking Dead, I'm still over the moon about Terry Crews joining the Tales of the Walking Dead show. I'm so excited about that.
That's really awesome.
I'm a big fan.
Moonfall. All right, I'm going to Google this and
Yep, make a
about.
note of that. All right. To anyone who watched live, that'd be you. And anybody who's watching later over on my YouTube channel, thank you so much for joining us. And remember to stay bloody.